Throughout the land of Custodia, reverence of the grievous miracle took various forms. There's the members of the Brotherhood of Silent Sorrow who humbled themselves before the miracle by taking a vow of silence. There's the sisters of the convent of Our Lady of the Charred Visage, who burned their own faces with hot oil after the example of the titular lady, whose constant pain was seen as a work of the miracle. And there's the most prominent example, the clergy that filled the grand cathedrals of the Mother of Mothers, whose leader, His Holiness Escobar, was seen as one that could commune directly with the miracle. One of the more humble practices was that of the Genuflecting Pilgrims, also called the Barefoot Rule. This practice was started by a man named Nicanor, who, the legends say, once gathered his disciples together and made 3 proclamations. 1. A genuine genuflecting pilgrim must never divert their eyes from the earth they walk on. 2. A genuine genuflecting pilgrim will always have his hands tied behind his back during his travels, as his feet are the only thing that should matter to him. And 3. A genuine genuflecting pilgrim will always walk alone. It is the solitary path that will grant him constant meditation and understanding of what it means to be a pilgrim in the lands of the miracle. Then Nicanor left, setting out on a pilgrimage of his own, crossing the lands of Custodia, completing his penance as he felt the miracle had assigned it to him. His travels took him far and wide, including to the cathedrals of the Mother of Mothers, whose clergy didn't take kindly to the penance of this meandering nobody. His steps into their grand church would be the end of his pilgrimage. Nicanor was named a heretic by the Mother of Mothers, and as punishment for his crime, he was brutally tortured in front of his followers and then buried alive. As the crowd dispersed and the rest of Nicanor's followers left the grave of their master, one follower noticed something in the dirt, a fingernail torn from Nicanor's body in his final moments. The follower took the last physical remnant of his master, infiltrated the Mother of Mothers, and hid the relic in the church, close to where his pilgrimage ended, leaving a piece of the heretical Barefoot Pilgrim in the place most revered by those that sentenced him to a cruel and horrible end. However, this gruesome remnant wouldn't be the only remainder of Nicanor in the world. The 3 proclamations he made to his disciples on that morning long ago became the mandates of the Barefoot Rule, whose followers were called the Genuflecting Pilgrims. They could easily be seen in the lands of Custodia wherever they walked, as they took the words of their master to heart, although with some additions. Their legs were tied together with a length of rope, and a container was wound around their necks, perhaps as a reminder to keep their bodies bent downwards and their eyes on the ground before them. Nevertheless, obeying the rules of their order, the pilgrims embarked on pilgrimages of their own, wandering the lands of Custodia as penance for their sins. A common destination was a surprising one, a statue of Nicanor erected in the Mother of Mothers, at the place where his pilgrimage came to its end. It's unclear if it was guilt at his brutal execution, or some power of the miracle working through the remnant of the man hidden in the church that led to its construction. But nevertheless, with its existence, pilgrims of the Barefoot Rule flocked to the statue. One such pilgrim was a man named Redento, who regularly faced some near insurmountable obstacles in his path, yet always received timely help from a passing penitent that allowed him to complete his journey. The first trial came at the rim of the immense inverted bell of Hondo. The gaping chasm before him offered no place for his feet to stand upon to continue his journey, so he stood, stumped at this conundrum, until mechanical platforms began to move in front of him, giving him the ability to cross the valley so he may continue his path. These platforms were set into motion thanks to the efforts of a penitent clad in iron armor wielding a sword of thorns, a penitent that Redento offered thanks to by offering one of the treasures of his order, a limestone toe from the statue of Nicanor. He went on his way, but not long after, Redento met his next trial. A wall of stone stood before him, blocking his path forward. But, like before, The penitent one came to his aid, shattering the wall from the other side, opening up Redento's path before him. He again gave thanks to this man that was showing him such kindness, and set forth on his journey. In the wasteland of the buried churches, the ground before him turned to dangerous spikes, promising to skewer the feet of any that tread upon them, preventing Redento from proceeding yet again. As he lamented his difficulties, trees were felled atop the spikes, allowing safe passage over them. Again, Redento's timely friend, the penitent one, had come to his aid, and again, ever grateful to the kindness he had been shown, Redento gifted another limestone toe of the Barefoot Pilgrim to the penitent one, and then continued on his way. He neared the end of his journey, making it to the patio of the silent steps before the Mother of Mothers, but the appearance of a fierce monster on the path before him stopped him in his tracks. He had not the skills to take the monstrosity on, being but a gentle pilgrim, so waited for the opportunity to advance. At some point, the body of another penitent fell from the sky, and although initially startled, Redento began to wonder what had driven the man to end his life. Upon the arrival of his familiar friend, Redento shared some of the musings he'd had while considering the man before him, about the punishments imposed upon them by the miracle, and the agony that can consume someone if they do not understand them. But soon turned the conversation to his newest obstacle. As expected, his friend slayed the monster, opening up Redento's path to the Mother of Mothers and to his final destination. Before setting out, he gave the penitent one the last relic he had of his order, then made his way to the statue of the Barefoot Pilgrim. And yet, being before the likeness of his master, completing his pilgrimage, Redento could feel that his penance wasn't complete, that there was still something more that his master needed of him before setting him on his new path. But nothing came to him. It drove him to tears, and he groveled before the statue, pleading for a sign. It was during these darkest hours that his friend, the penitent one, entered the room. He was bearing the relics of the Barefoot Pilgrim within his rosary, and the statue of Nicanor reacted to their presence, moving aside and revealing a small cave behind it. Redento, thankful for a new path opening before him, made his way into the cave, yet when the penitent one followed him within, all he found was Redento's still body, lying in a puddle of blood. Nearby lay the final remains of Nicanor, uncorrupted, and still bearing the power of the pilgrim. It's unclear what led to Redento's death. Perhaps the weariness of his journey finally consumed him and he collapsed from exhaustion. Maybe finding that there was no path in the cave, but an end, confused Redento, who still felt the guilt of his sins within his heart, and being reminded of the feeling he had looking upon Cleophas's body, chose to kill himself to finally be free of the pain. Or perhaps he realized that the path his master set before him was not one that he could tread on this side of the dream, so he ended his life so that he may follow his master on the paths beyond. Whatever the reason, the fact that after some time passed, roots began to emerge from his body could indicate that his death was aligned with the will of the miracle. Now, before we finish up, there is one more thing I'd like to talk about that could be related to the Pilgrims that's more based on speculation than any established lore. And it has to do with this comment said by Redento after helping him in the Brotherhood of Silent Sorrows.
Now my feet are marching towards holy prohibitions. How can a simple pilgrim advance through such fortification?
For those unfamiliar, there's an area in Custodia named the Wall of the Holy Prohibitions. It's a place that the clergy of the Mother of Mothers sent heretics and blasphemers of the miracle. Within this area are enemies that are called lunatics, and their design draws a striking resemblance to the design of Redento and the statue of Nicanor. Their hands are bound behind their backs, their feet are tied together, and they bend over sharply when they charge to attack. Could these prisoners be genuflecting pilgrims? Could they be ones that were captured by the clergy and sentenced to imprisonment and torture for their blasphemous belief? After all, it's known that Nicanor was deemed a heretic by the Mother of Mothers, so why wouldn't the rest of them be? Or maybe it's something on the other side of the coin. Perhaps the Barefoot Rule was dreamed up by prisoners within the wall that managed to escape, but used the conditions they suffered within as the rules for their new belief system, as a way they believed they could repent. Maybe that's why none of those that heard Nicanor's proclamations ever saw him again. That was the day he escaped the prison. It might explain why he was tortured so brutally and buried alive. It served as a punishment for escaping from prison that also sent a message to those that considered escaping. Or maybe it's just coincidence. After all, it makes sense to bind the hands and feet of prisoners, especially ones that are as dangerous as the lunatics. But it's a pretty substantial coincidence if that's the case. Whatever it may be, there's nothing directly linking the lunatics of the Wall of the Holy Prohibitions to the Genuflecting Pilgrims of the Barefoot Rule. So it will remain speculation unless more information comes out. But with that, we've reached the conclusion of the video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to share them. I'd be happy to hear from you. But other than that, all I've got to say is thank you for watching and see you later.